Hi, I'm Sydney, and I am a servant of the Almighty God. Continuing the series on recognizing God's omnipotence, today I want to talk about science, religion, and intrinsic intelligence. Now, I think this is big. This is really big. This is basically the culmination, back in the 1800s, around the time of, Charles Darwin and the revelations that provided the information on evolution, basically, and his writing on the origin of species and all that stuff. During that time in the 1800s, what we had was a big split, right? Religion and science seemed to have a big split back then. And so religion got really uncomfortable. Still is today. Many people, they can't resolve it. Well, here is the resolution. And this is why this is so big. And this resolution of, science basically, well, everything was just, evolving naturally. And this basically shows that nature is, like I say, it's a manifestation of God's omnipotence. So here's where we are today. And this is why this is, again, I say it's big. We have advanced in only the last, 500 years? We have advanced to the point enabled by the revelations of science, materials and both on the properties of all these materials that always occurred, because science is really a journey of discovery. We don't invent the things, the basic things, like all the raw materials out in nature, everything in the periodic table. We did not invent or create any of that. We learned of it, it was already there. Like I talk about DNA and all the things we see in nature. We did not invent any of those. But we are creators. We are creators today of our machines. We use computers, and soon, well, it's already happening, right? We are creators of things like drones and robots and cars and refrigerators and all this video equipment. And as creators, we have advanced to the point where we are now embedding intelligence into our creations. Think about that. We are creators. And as creators, we are embedding intelligence into our creations. Now, we won't embed the same intelligence into a refrigerator, a car, a drone, a plane, and even all the different forms of robotics that things take, from, independent autonomous robots to robotic arms and legs and things used in surgery or in manufacturing. All of these robots have different intelligence that we will embed into them. See where this is going? We've done this in the last, let's say, 500 years, right? This is what we have accomplished. Now think of when we look at evolution and we see billions of years. A creator had the time and the intelligence, even if it wasn't there at the beginning, over millennia, billions of years really, to start with something small and build intelligence into it. And as it grows, and so now what we see is we can recognize everywhere in nature intrinsic intelligence. This is the intelligence that is not learned. Just as we would, with AI, we would put something into a car, and the car can learn because it adds to that as it goes along. It encounters certain situation, it looks at all the logic we've put in there and says, okay, now this is new, let me add this to, and this is what we are seeing. There are basic, the initial load, the initial software load, the boot program, basically, right? This is what you use to boot something. That's the intelligence that we would impart to our machines with AI. we see the same in nature. This is the boot program that's in a bee. This is the same boot program, a different version specific to the corolla spider, so that the corolla spider knows it does not have to be taught. The corolla spider knows, based on that boot program, what is a quartz crystal. It also knows that what are the properties of a quartz crystal. A honeybee knows how to transmit information to the rest of the group. It also knows how to make honey and honeycomb, which is something that we try to emulate. We are amazed by that. And as today, you would recognize that most of our brilliant scientists are looking to nature. They're looking to nature because that's where we see those boot programs that were embedded into his creations. So when we look at plants, we look at, oh, look at how the plant, oh, that's a smart way to do things. We are looking at the boot programs, that boot up programs that he has embedded into his creations. This now becomes, just as it was uncomfortable in the 1800s for religion to realize, wow, there's this science that is just showing things that we, it's revealing things that make us uncomfortable because some of the accepted truths, they are being challenged. They are severely being challenged. It has come full circle. Now science, because we are now creators embedding intelligence into our creations, we can recognize intrinsic intelligence as the embedding of intelligence into his creations. We see it everywhere. And so I like to use that analogy of every living thing has DNA. We know this. It can be considered, every species can be considered a specific DNA configuration, right? And maybe I'm using, from my software background, using something, but think of it as each living species as another type, another form of DNA, right? It's configured a little differently. Along with that DNA, which we know that actually it's important because that controls the physical look, the physical attributes of every species, whether it has hair, feathers, the size, all of these things, a plant, all of this is controlled by DNA. But there is something else. We don't know if it's configured somewhere in DNA, but it's somewhere, this boot program. And this is where science will be very, very uncomfortable for a while, because just science grows by observing things, and then we are able to research it and basically create rules around it, just like when the earth was the center of the universe. Then we realized, no, it's not. Similarly, the earth was flat. We observed and we observed and then we realized, no, it's not. Now we can observe, because we are embedding intelligence into our creations, that there is a source that has created, designed, and I'm going to use some in IT terms, but has designed these programs that are specific to every species and embedded it in non-volatile memory that cannot be erased. A bee does not forget how to make honey or honeycomb. The corolla spider will not forget what quartz look like or how to use quartz. So that it's put into memory in a way that it will never be erased for the lifetime. On top of that, they can learn, just like with our AI. So this intrinsic intelligence is analogous to our AI. We put it into machines, which, chips and metals, he puts it into his creation, living organisms. And so science now, and it will bring a time of, some discomfort to both religion and science. Because with religion, there are a lot of things that have to be clarified, stories being written by people during a certain time with a certain perspective. Science is truth. But now, science has always rejected the concept of that intelligent being, that intelligent supreme creator. AI has taken us to that point where we can now recognize intelligence which goes into memory. Now, we currently cannot. We talk about memory, but we cannot assess memory. We cannot quantify, like, this child or this has this much memory, but we know it's there. We can observe things being remembered. You hear it all the time. All the scientists now talk about nature doing this. But when you talk about intrinsic intelligence, with one source, which has to put it in everything, every species has to get its own version, because you don't want a fish trying to act like an elephant or a spider. He doesn't have to spin a web. This is the basic intrinsic intelligence, which today shows us that there is a supreme creator who designed these programs and embedded it into his creations. This is something that will be my mission until I am recalled, basically. And I hope that you get this picture very clear, because we must spread the word. It's this period of discomfort for the accepted, because obviously there is something when we say nature did this and nature did that, and we did not understand it. But now that we recognize intrinsic intelligence is what this source has embedded into something that we cannot access, we can't quantify, memory. And in this case, it's permanent memory in every species, every plant, every animal. Even things like hibernation. We look at how do birds navigate, how do things, these animals that hibernate, how do they know when, how do they, even their internal systems. Our immune system, we don't train it, it knows. When a bear goes to hibernate and his system, everything slows down. When a seal dives, a whale dives, the heart slows down. All of these things, this is part of, we must recognize, part of that intrinsic intelligence that is imparted by the Creator into his creations. So, like I said, this will be an uncomfortable time, but we should all get on that bandwagon of spreading this word. Because in spite of all the things that we can debate, science is something that we cannot. We can observe it, and then we have to do the research to prove these things. And so while we as yet cannot prove memory, we can, just as we can observe the sun rising and setting, we can observe intrinsic intelligence in all of its creations. Look around you, and now when you see every animal, every plant, take the time to recognize that both program, the intrinsic intelligence that he has imparted into his creations. Once again, I want to thank you for taking the time for viewing this video, and until next time, I hope that you would take the time to see the wonders of and recognize why we should all be God-fearing individuals. Thank you again, and until next time, may God bless.